the simplest sense, the difference between education and learning is education is from the outside in. Learning is always from the inside out. The one thing we can say is that whereas what knowledge and skills and experiences are necessary and relevant to a child's future, right, that's kind of fuzzy. But what's not fuzzy is that their ongoing ability to learn, how well they're able to extend themselves when they get there into areas that we can't even predict at the time we're educating them, that's what's most relevant. So we want to provide them the scaffolding to be able to be self-directed, self-motivated, healthy, open, able to learn what they need to learn when they get there. There's nothing that we have to, and this is one of the main misorganizing aspects of education. We proceed from the assumption as if what we have to teach is more important than how well they learn. And there's no way that can be true. A lot of what I'm going to say I think is going to connect up to what we've been talking about this morning, particularly about mission of education, because I think at the core of all of this conversation is we're misoriented, fundamentally misoriented in terms of what the intention of education is. Right? And the other thing that we haven't been doing very well, I think, is bringing the participation in. That it's not just a brain, it's not just a machine, it's a human being, and the being has to participate. And it's the quality and health of that participation that has to be, I think, the kind of central organizing principle. One of the places that this started for me personally was to realize that not only do I learn, I am learned. There may be some aspect of myself that's beyond what I've learned, but I can't say or think or know anything about it that's not been influenced by my learning. How we think about, it's all learned. Learning isn't just this utility for acquisition. It's the way that we become more present and extensive in the world from the time we're born. We are born learning-oriented. We come into the world wired up to learn our way into the world. Nobody has to teach us how to do that. We come that way. It's our instinct. It's our nature. It's what makes us, as we'll touch on with the anthropologist in a few minutes, it's what makes us human. You can see the baby's kind of gravity surfing right there, right? It's sensing the edge of its own experience, live, right now, not later, right now, right on the edge. It senses itself start to fall, and it is the differentiating the sense of falling and moving so as to not fall that propels walking. It's not some kind of computer-like little script that's being run. You could say unhealthy learning could have one of two forms. One form is that it's resulted in learning, in the noun sense, possessed learning, infrastructure, knowledge, skills, routines that aren't very efficient, that don't work very well in scaffolding fresh new learning. So one part's kind of cognitive, mechanical, and the other part is emotional avoidance. And either one of those things is dangerous. 10 times the number of kids who have innately, biologically ordered learning difficulties have learning difficulties that are a consequence of what they learned. And until such time as we can read that space really well, it comes back to mental lenses, until such time as we can read the emotional learning disabilities going on in a child, so that we can engage them in a way to work them through that, until such time as we can read where they're cognitively going askew relative to what they've learned in the past, then our teaching is kind of brute force against this deep core stuff that's working against us. So we've got to be, once a kid's off the trajectory, we have to be neurologically super efficient. We've got to be all the more attentive to meeting them on the edge of what they actually need to stay in the learning. And then we have to reframe their past experience of learning to disconnect them from this shame that's learning disabled. The first thing that I would argue and advocate for everybody who works with people directly in the learning to read space is learn to sync up with them. Don't try to teach them through a model that actually creates a distance between you and them. Don't throw a protocol at them. And that if you want to sync up with them, the first thing you got to realize, and you got to experience first person, rather than inferentially, because so-and-so said, The first thing is to realize that every start, stop, hesitation, stutter in the flow of their voice has a direct correspondence to a section of the code that their brain is stuttering in the processing of. And the more that sync between those two is actually first person clear to you, the better that everything you know about reading can intervene to help them. The further you are from that, the more you're throwing a model.